Welcome to our session. Today we're diving into a pretty intense discussion about how a well-known scholar argues that there's a concerted push by the Israel lobby to steer the US toward an Iran war.
Yeah,
It's a complex and controversial claim.
right. It's not your everyday headline. It really makes you stop and think about the interplay between political influence and foreign policy.
Absolutely. Mearsheimer, as discussed in the video, challenges the notion that US policy is solely built on national security interests. Instead, he argues that the Israel lobby has been pushing its own strategic agenda, particularly regarding Iran.
That's really something to chew on. It suggests that behind the scenes, there might be these powerful forces shaping foreign interventions in ways many of us might not
Right.
expect.
Exactly. And, it kind of paints a picture where policy decisions are not just about security or democracy promotion, but are also influenced by lobbying groups with their specific interests.
Yeah, I see what you mean. But here's something that puzzles me. Is it fair to place that much influence on one lobby? Could it be that there are multiple factors at play?
Good question. Well, Mearsheimer is quite clear that while many factors contribute to foreign policy, the Israel lobby has a level of influence that uniquely pressures decision makers to adopt an aggressive stance regarding Iran. It's like he's saying, imagine if one group had the power to change the entire rulebook.
True, true. Right, and I think that's where the debate heats up. Some critics argue that his framing is overly simplistic and might even be, well, politically charged.
Yeah, indeed. It's as if he's drawing a straight line between the lobby's influence and the push for war, almost like saying it's a cause-effect relationship without much room for nuance.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if you think about it, foreign policy is inherently messy. There's a blend of ideology, economics, and strategic concerns on top of lobby pressures.
Absolutely, right? And Mearsheimer's perspective emphasizes the need to critically examine those lobbying efforts, portraying them as not just one of many voices, but as a major force. Kind of like, it's like you have a choir and one singer is so loud that it overshadows the harmony of the rest.
Yeah, that's a vivid analogy. However, don't you think that might oversimplify the dynamics at play? Like, there's the possibility that the lobby, though influential, is merely one chord in a complex political symphony.
That's a fair point. I mean, it's a tricky balance. On one hand, he shines a spotlight on how lobbying can skew national interest, but on the other, critics suggest this might underplay other critical factors: economic interests, historical alliances, and even internal political dynamics.
Exactly. And I think that tension is at the heart of his debate. The idea that the lobby is just one of multiple competing influences, yet its impact feels disproportionately loud, especially in matters as grave as war with Iran.
Right. And, it's interesting how the video is set up by breaking points. They bring in Crystal and Sagar to host the discussion, which creates this dynamic environment where Mearsheimer's viewpoints can be both challenged and defended in real time.
Yeah, that's key, for sure. It adds an engaging, almost live debate vibe, where the conversation isn't just a monologue, but a back and forth that forces deeper scrutiny. I mean, you can almost feel the tension and the passion in these discussions.
Right, it definitely creates a charged atmosphere. And it makes you think, if such lobbying exists, what does it say about the policy formation process? Is the focus primarily on geopolitical security or on ideology and alliance building that serve interests beyond, say, a nation's direct security?
That's a central question. And Mearsheimer's argument seems to question the very foundation of American engagement in the Middle East, almost implying that there's an external, interest-driven blueprint at work rather than a neutral, security-first approach.
Absolutely. Exactly. And one could argue that if we accept his premise, it forces us to re-examine historical decisions, like the US stance during different administrations, and ask, how much of that was influenced by internal lobbying versus broader strategic interests?
Right. Indeed, and I think it's also a call for more transparency. If a lobby can have that sway, shouldn't there be more accountability in how these decisions get made?
Totally. And it reminds me of how, in many areas of policy, there's a risk of special interest groups bending the system to their will, sometimes at the cost of a more balanced national strategy. It's like, a single loud voice overpowering a chorus of concerns.
Right? And it's a conversation that definitely resonates beyond US foreign policy, touching on themes of power, influence, and the integrity of democratic decision making.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another layer here is the public's reaction. Viewers are quick to share and debate these ideas online. There's a sort of cultural self reflection when viewers hear claims like these. They have to ask, are we being led blindly by powerful interests?
Right. And while some rally behind Mearsheimer's critique, others feel it could push a narrative that's too one sided. It's like walking a tightrope between exposing hidden influences and oversimplifying intricate policymaking.
Exactly, and I think that's where a respectful challenge arises. When you look at these arguments, you have to recognize that while the Israel lobby might be influential, there are also legitimate security concerns and strategic reasons for engagement that aren't entirely orchestrated by any lobby.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right, so it's definitely a balancing act, acknowledging the lobby's power while also understanding that policy formulation is multifaceted. You can't reduce it to a single influencer without missing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And speaking of that, think about how this debate intersects with broader narratives of media and academia. Mearsheimer, being a seasoned academic, challenges mainstream perspectives, which sometimes gets lost in the echo chambers of media coverage.
True, and it sort of forces the audience to reconsider where they get their information from. If academic discussions spill over into popular media like breaking points, it elevates the level of discourse, right?
Right on. Yeah, it bridges the gap between scholarly critique and everyday political debate. But there's a risk too. When such heavy topics are distilled into short sound bites online, nuance can suffer. It's like, trying to capture a symphony in a tweet.
Exactly. Good point. And I think that's where the role of podcast style deep dives can really add value, by giving listeners the space to explore these ideas in greater depth without reducing them to oversimplified narratives.
Right, and it also fosters a kind of dialogue, an exchange where, even if you disagree, you get to unpack the assumptions behind these claims. For instance, questioning whether the depiction of the lobby's role might be influenced by broader ideological battles in American politics.
And that's a healthy debate because robust analysis, even when it challenges conventional wisdom, is critical for democratic societies. Yet, there's always the concern about how such polarizing issues might be used to polarize opinions further.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. It's like on one hand you want to shine a light on undue influence, but on the other, constant focus on such aspects can contribute to a cycle of mistrust in government institutions.
Right? That's a valid concern. So then the big question becomes, how do we ensure greater transparency without inadvertently fueling further division?
That's the million-dollar question. Indeed. And perhaps it starts with nuanced, multifaceted discussions like these, where we acknowledge every piece of the puzzle rather than painting broad strokes. It's about, challenging each other to look at the complexities of policy formation.
Absolutely. I think this conversation really captures that spirit. We're not just taking a side, we're examining the layers, lobby influence, legitimate security concerns, media dynamics, and the role of scholarly critique in everyday political debate.
Right, exactly. And it's refreshing to see such topics discussed openly, even when they're as contentious as this one. It pushes us to think critically about what we might otherwise accept at face value.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been really enlightening unpacking this discussion today. It certainly leaves us with a lot to think about regarding political influence and how narratives are shaped in our modern world.
Absolutely. Totally. And while there may be disagreements on the extent or nature of the Israel lobby's influence, having these kinds of conversations is crucial for a deeper, more informed understanding of international relations and policy making.
Yeah, for sure. It reminds us that beneath every headline and viral video, there's a wealth of nuance that deserves our careful attention. Thanks for this thoughtful chat.
Thank you as well. Anytime. Until next time, keep questioning and digging beneath the surface. It's the best way to stay informed.